Hello, great people. The Federal High Court has nullified the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and has ordered the Senate to reinstate her with immediate effect. This is victory for the senator representing Kogi Central, but also the senator lost the contempt charge that was filed against her by the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. So it's a win and lose for the senator representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. On this episode of Politics with Joshua Plug, this video will be in three parts. First, we will be discussing the court case as regards the nullification of her suspension. Second, we'll be discussing the contempt judgment that was delivered by the court against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. While third, we'll be reviewing Nigeria's legislative conduct and particularly the conduct of the Nigerian Senate. What did the court say against the Nigerian Senate? What is the logicality of Senate operations and how best can the Senate conduct itself? We'll be dissecting all these and more on this episode with your short plug, Dr. Omosoladeji. First, I can tell you that the Federal High Court of Justice Binta Inyako did a thorough job on the case, and we'll be looking in the later part of this video whether Natasha truly got justice. But the court has nullified her suspension and has ordered the Senate to reinstate her with immediate effect. The judge in her judgment described the suspension of Natasha as excessive. That her suspension was unduly excessive. Nigerians saw this coming as most of the suspension that have been handed down by the Nigerian Senate to its members have always been nullified by the court. You will recall the case of Senator Ali Ndume. You will recall the case of Senator Ningi. Most of these cases that have been decided have been caught have gone the way of the senator that was suspended. So personally, I wasn't surprised that justice came the way of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. And if you look at it truly, the suspension for 6 months was truly excessive. So kudos to Justice Binta Inyako. If you have forgotten Justice Binta Inyako, let me serve you a reminder. Justice Binta Inyako was the one that Nnamdi Kanu told to recuse herself from his case because he has lost trust in her capacity to be fair in that particular case. So it is this same Justice Binta Inyako that was given the case of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. She wasn't the first judge. The first judge recused himself after he came under enormous pressure. So that means that the Justice Binta Inyako is the second judge and she was courageous enough to deliver judgment. But if we look at that particular judgment, does the judge mean that the Senate can suspend its members? That's one thing that we can look at, because if the judge says that the suspension is excessive, that means that the judge is indirectly saying that the Senate can suspend its members, just that the suspension that was handed down on Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan in this instance was excessive. And if you look at it, the rule book of the Senate truly says that the Senate can suspend its members. And I think they do that so that definitely everybody can conduct themselves. Although many think that the suspension of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan was not only unjust, but indeed excessive. And Natasha herself, if you look at it, is representing a constituency. So if you look at, even without the judgment of the court and considering the judgment of the court as well, Natasha is representing a constituency. That constituency has to be represented, because even as Natasha was suspended, that constituency is still contributing their quota to national development, in the sense that the companies in that constituency, people that are working in that constituency, the federal government is still collecting tax from them. So you have denied that particular Kogi Central constituency, you have denied them representation, but you are still earning from them as Nigeria. The companies in that location, they are still paying tax. The workers in that location, they are still paying tax as well. So the people in that constituency, they are fulfilling their obligation to the Nigerian state, while Nigeria has denied them representation by the conduct of the Nigerian Senate. So looking at the judgment of the court, it is very logical. Now, that is one part. Now, the second part that I promise you is the contempt case that was decided by the same judge, Justice Binta Inyako. The judge found Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan guilty of contempt because when the case was filed in court, Akpabio, the Senate president, approached the court that, okay, my lord, please, these people are commenting on this case and being bullied on social media and on the terrestrial media. So the judge gave an order that nobody should appear on the media and nobody should say anything on social media as regards the case. But On 27th April, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan made a satirical post on her Facebook called the satirical apology letter, and that letter was addressed to Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President. And I just said this satirical apology letter for you at that point in time. So if you want to know the content, do want to catch up with it in my video catalog. So while reviewing the when Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan posted the satirical apology letter, the Senate President approached the court that, my lord, look at Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. She has disobeyed the order of the court. She has now posted something against me. My lord, please save me. Have mercy on me so that these people will not continue to bully me. So when Akpabio approached the court entertained that particular motion, or is it application that they call it, and now the judge delivered judgment as regards it. So the judge found Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan guilty, although Natasha was smart, but then she didn't succeed as regards that particular contempt case, in the sense that Natasha said that the satirical apology letter was regards the sexual harassment between her and Senator Godswill Akpabio. But then the case in court is as regards her suspension. But the judge, when she read the satirical apology letter, she didn't agree with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. She said, from what I've read, I find you guilty because what you have written still kind of like relates to your suspension in the Senate. But Natasha gave up a very strong argument that it was as regards sexual harassment, which is a case that is not before the my Lord Justice Binta Inyako. So the court, in its wisdom, decided to fine her 5 million naira, and she has to publish an apology letter on her Facebook page within 2 days, and within 7 days she needs to publish apology letter on 2 national newspapers. So that is the judgment that the court gave as regards the contempt charge. But then if we look at it, is there justice in that regard? In the sense that, shouldn't Akpabio himself have been kind of like fined for contempt? Because you will recall that the Senate, under the leadership of Akpabio itself, failed to obey court order that was halting the disciplinary action against Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. You will recall that when the Senate instituted disciplinary action against her for her not sitting on the seat that was allocated to her on the Red Chamber, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan approached the court for protection, but the Senate still went ahead with that disciplinary proceeding and eventually suspended her. That itself, isn't it a disobedience of court order? Isn't it a contempt of the court itself? So why wasn't Akpabio and the leadership of the National Assembly, particularly the Nigerian Senate, why were they not punished? Why was it that it was when Natasha published a satirical apology letter that she was now punished? So I find that a bit kind of like one-sided in that regard. So it's kind of like, 1-1, if you can call it. But the good thing is that suspension has been nullified, and it is expected that the Senate will allow her to resume, except if the Senate decide to appeal. And appealing such a judgment will just amount to a waste of time of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. Let us look at something. Did Natasha get justice? Let us review the Nigerian justice system. Did Natasha get justice? In the sense that Natasha was suspended on March 3, I think, and judgment was delivered in July. After 4 months, she was suspended for 6 months, and the case dragged on for 4 months. And at the end of the day, as regards that particular case, she was still fined 5 million naira. And apart from the 5 million naira fine, she has to apologize on her Facebook and 2 national newspapers. So if you look at it, did Natasha truly get justice? Although her suspension is nullified, but it comes about after 4 months. Is that justice? So why can't we speed up the Nigerian justice system in such a way that when the suspension was handed down, max at least a month after 30 days, the court would have delivered judgment? That is justice in the true sense of justice. That is justice in not suffering from the illegality that was perpetrated by the Nigerian Senate. But if you are now giving judgment after she has served about 4 months of the suspension, then where is justice in that regard? You have given a favorable judgment, but the level of justice, if you look at it, leaves much to be desired from the Nigerian justice system. And will the Senate decide to appeal the judgment of the court? If the Senate decide to go to appeal court and to the Supreme Court, definitely that means that Natasha would have eventually served out that suspension period before because before the appeal court will decide the matter, then before the Supreme Court will now decide the matter, it would have been a fait accompli on Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Nigerian judiciary, because definitely the tenure of her suspension would have expired, and it doesn't cost Akpabio anything and the leadership of the Nigerian Senate to appeal the judgment. And that is why I said that Nigerian justice system needs to be reviewed. And let us look at another thing which I find very important, which is that after all said and done, it is apparently obvious that Akpabio will render Natasha as ineffectual as possible in the Nigerian Senate, a system that can allow the presiding officer to victimize you just because he doesn't like you, that can allow the presiding officer to witch hunt you just because he doesn't like you. That system itself needs to be rejigged, because if you look at it, Akpabio is a lord unto himself in the Nigerian Senate, and he will apparently render Natasha as useless and as ineffectual as possible in the Senate, even if she resumes. And I foresee a situation whereby Natasha will be given the worst seat on the floor of the red chamber. So the witch hunt will be so much, and at the end of the day, she doesn't have anything to kind of like do in that regard, because Akpabio as the Senate president wields enormous power. So I just hope that Akpabio will be matured not to continue to victimize the senator, and I just hope that the Senate will not appeal the judgment. Akpabio should learn from Abdullahi Ganduj in the sense that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu government that is supporting him now, tomorrow can turn against him. Look at how Bola Ahmed Tinubu suddenly turned against Ganduj, the Ganduj that he unilaterally made the chairman of the ruling All Progressive Congress, the Ganduj that the federal government have been protecting as regards the corruption case that was filed against him by the Kano state government, the same Ganduj that the federal government have been supporting as regards the emirship tussle in Kano state, and that has led to a lot of crises. Suddenly, Bola Ahmed Tinubu decided to discard him. That should be a lesson for Godswill Akpabio, that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu that you are romancing today, the Bola Ahmed Tinubu that is welcoming you with open arms, that is supporting you today, suddenly can decide to discard you. And definitely, all what you have done when you have opportunity, when you are in that leadership position, will be what people will be remembering. So I just hope that Akpabio will be matured in this regard, and I just hope that the Nigerian senators can also be matured as well, because the way some of them have been conducting themselves as regards this matter, only God knows the truth, and also Natasha and Akpabio as regards the sexual harassment. It is between both of them and God. As we are speaking right now, they both know the truth. Akpabio knows whether he harassed her, Natasha knows whether she was harassed, and God knows what happened between them. So people that do not know what happened between them on the floor of the Nigerian Senate, just because of what they want to chop, to use street parlance, should not just side Godswill Akpabio, because they don't know whether Akpabio is truly as guilty as charged as regards the sexual harassment leveled against him by Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. It's been an interesting time with you on this episode of Politics. Subscribe, turn on your notification button, catch up with my past video. See you in my next video. I love you all sincerely.